Uh, Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, you are.
Okay, and my screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So we'll start with the Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Savarjatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Stamsa Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paljana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय हरे कृष्णा. So we'll continue with Gita 13.20. प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विद्यनादि उभावपि विकारंश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान् प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विद्यनादि उभावपि विकारंश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान् प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विद्यनादि उभावपि विकारंश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान्. Okay, who wants to recite?
Can I try, Prabhu?
Yeah, okay.
Prakritim purusham cha eva vidhi anadi ubhav api vikaram cha gunam cha eva vidhi prakriti sambhavam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Next.
I can try, Prabhu.
Okay.
Prakritim purusham chaiva vitti anadi ubhav api vikaramscha gunamschaiva vitti prakriti sambhavan.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Next.
I try, sir.
Okay.
Prakirti purusham chaiva vidya anadi uba api vikaram gunam chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhava. Hare Krishna, sir.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, no one. We'll proceed with the synonyms. Okay. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidyanadi ubhavapi vikaram shagunam chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. Prakritim, material nature. Purusham, the living entity. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Vidhi, you must know. Anadi, without beginning. Ubhav, both. Api, also. Vikaran, transformations. Cha, also. Gunan, the three modes of nature. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Vidhi, no. Prakriti, material nature. Sambhavan, produced of. Translation, material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformation and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Okay, before we proceed, can anyone recall the main subject matters of this chapter? This chapter starts with six question, Arjuna's questions about six subject matters, right?
The real doer is moods. The soul is observed.
I mean the list of six subject matters, Prabhu, in this chapter. From the beginning. Yeah.
Matter.
Mm. From the first verse in this chapter, chapter 13, it starts with the question about 6 subject matters. So what are the 6 topics covered in this chapter?
Kshetra, Kshetranya. Kshetra means the body, the feel of the feel, if I'm mistaken. And then Kshetranya is the knower of the body.
Mm. Okay.
And then what else?
Nayam,
Yeah. Okay.
the object of knowledge.
Mm. Yes.
Kshetra, Kshetranya, object of knowledge.
Name, object of knowledge. Okay. 3. Another 3.
And a supreme knower.
Paramatma.
Actually, two are already in this verse. In this verse itself, 2 are mentioned.
So, Prakriti.
Okay.
And then entities.
Field
Jiva.
of activity.
Oh, earlier, Harshvaran Prabhu mentioned Kshetra, Kshetrajna. Then Vaishnava Kripa Prabhu mentioned about Niyam. So 3. Okay, Prakriti 4. Remaining 2. There's another one here in this verse, apart from Prakriti.
Purusha is the one that can
Yes.
look into.
Okay, you got 5. One more. The 6 topics, they appear like in 3 pairs. They are like mentioned as 3 pairs. Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Prakriti, Purusha. Okay, then Niyam. Apart from Niyam, what is the pair? In the first
Object
verse,
of knowledge.
Niyam is object of knowledge.
Jnanam.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so in this chapter, from the beginning itself, like Arjuna specifies the 6 topics, and from the second verse itself, Lord Krishna starts to explain one by one. So the 6 subject matters: Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnanam, Nyayam. So Prakriti, material nature; Purusha, the enjoyer; Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Kshetra, the field or the body; Kshetrajna, knower of the body or field; Jnanam, Nyayam, Jnanam, knowledge; Nyayam, object of knowledge. So all these 6 subject matters are covered in this chapter. So from the second verse itself, right after Arjuna's inquiry, the Supreme Lord starts to explain one by one. So after covering one by one, now the focus is on these 2 subject matters, Prakriti and Purusha. So Prakriti, as mentioned in the translation, material nature and the living entities, Purusha. So before we proceed, why living entities are referred to here as Purushas?
There's a Purusha of the individual body. He is king now. He is the enjoyer of the individual body.
Yes. So we every individual soul, every individual spirit soul is also the enjoyer. But apart from the living entities, who is the supreme enjoyer?
Supreme Personality Godhead.
Yes. So even when we look at the term Kshetrajna, the knower of the field, so even regarding that term itself, the Supreme Lord has already explained in the earlier verses that every individual soul, every individual spirit soul is the knower of his own body, but the super soul is the knower in all the bodies. So all the living entities here, the living entities or the individual spirit souls, they are also known as the jivas. So all the spirit souls present in this material world, they are jivas, and as we'll see at the end of this purport, so the jivas are also they are all equal for the Supreme Lord. All the jivas are equal, but what actually we appear to be different from each other, mainly due to our material covering. But the knower of the field within the material body, that spirit soul is regarded as the same for the Supreme Lord. Okay, so the purport, by the knowledge given in this chapter, one can understand the body, the field of activities, and the knowers of the body, both the individual soul and the super soul. The body is the field of activity and is composed of material nature. The individual soul that is embodied and enjoying the activities of the body is the Purusha or the living entity. He is one knower and the other is the super soul. Of course, it is to be understood that both the super soul and the individual entity are different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is in the category of his energy, and the super soul is in the category of his personal expansion. Okay, we proceed further regarding these two topics. Actually, there are two important keywords. If you observe here in this last sentence, there is this distinction between the living entity and the super soul. So it is mentioned here that the living entity is in the category of his energy, and the super soul is in the category of his personal expansion. So there's one thing, if we note in not just in the Gita and Bhagavatam purports, in almost all the books written by Srila Prabhupada, he often uses the word expansion. He rarely uses the word incarnation, but in certain places, like in the Bhagavatam, chapter 3, in our Bhagavatam discourse, actually, we are now in chapter 13, but for those who still remember, in chapter 3, what is the title of Bhagavatam chapter 3 in Canto 1? The third chapter of Canto 1.
I just Googled Prabhu. Krishna is the source of all incarnation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada almost always he uses the word expansion. But here in this particular chapter, the title itself is incarnation. Anyone knows the reason why? Expansion and incarnation, they are similar but not the same. What is the difference between these two terms?
One is an Amsa, Prabhu.
Which one?
The Vishnu Tattvas.
Mm-hmm.
The other is only a part of the energy of the Supreme.
Vishnu Tattva is Amsa, then the other is meaning? You mean the incarnation?
Partial forms of Lord's energy, Prabhu.
Okay. Any other answers?
So maybe I can try. Maybe the incarnation is saying that I cannot say the word temporary because the incarnations,
Mm.
even though it's not present in the current world, it may be present in other universes. But what I would say is incarnation, when it been incarnated in this world, it was here for a period of time.
Mm.
But when it comes to expansion, it is something that is continuing from, like, for example, the super soul expansion. It's within us all the time when you are in the body. But the incarnations were much more confined to a certain period of time, I would say.
Mm.
That's what I understand.
Yeah, quite close. But to be precise, the difference between expansion and incarnation is that expansion is more like the superset. Incarnation is also a type of expansion. So to understand this, actually, just to um the summary of chapter 3 in Canto 1, here they have mentioned, it is mentioned that regarding the incarnations, because there are 22 incarnations explained in this chapter. So starting from the Purusha Avatara, there are six categories of incarnations which cover these 22 incarnations. And the reason why they are mentioned as incarnations is mainly because all these are starting right from the Purusha Avatara itself. All these have descended to the material world. Because the Purusha Avataras, there are 3 Purusha Avataras, right? Starting from Mahavishnu. So even the role of Mahavishnu himself is uh, related to administration of this material world. So compared to the expansions, they are related to the spiritual world, but the incarnations refer to those expansions which descended to the material world. So it is like a hierarchy. So the slide is visual, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So actually, I've also covered this in my, previous thematic studies earlier. So this is from those slides. So first of all, Krishna in his Swayam Rupa in the spiritual world, he resides in Goloka Vrindavana, and in Goloka, in the Goloka region itself, the Goloka region itself is divided into 3 regions. So the topmost, Goloka Vrindavana, Mathura Dhamma, and also Dwaraka. So all the expansions in Goloka itself, okay, they originate from the Swayam Rupa, expanding into all these different sub expansions. So he's always engaged in all his pastimes in all the dhammas. So in Golok, in the entire Goloka region itself, the topmost region, in the three subdivisions. Okay. So in Vrindavana, he is present as he's present in his pastimes with the Brajvasis. Then he's also present in Mathura Dhamma and also in Dwaraka, in the spiritual world, in the topmost region. So all these are expansions which are present there, and this is the topmost region of the hierarchy. So as we can see here, there's this Adi Chaturvyuha, starting from Swayam Rupa towards the bottom part of this Goloka region in the spiritual world. There's this Adi Chaturvyuha, the first or the primary Chaturvyuha expansion was Deva Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So this primary Chaturvyuha expansion becomes the source to the Vaikuntha expansions. So from the Swayam Rupa, we can see that it follows like a hierarchy. So from the Goloka region, the source of expansions which expand to into the Vaikuntha regions, they come from the Adi Chaturviha, and that's this Vaibhava Vilasa. And we can see that there are these different Narayana forms in Krishna's Vaikuntha expansions. So the topmost region in the spiritual world is the Goloka region, which itself consists of three main sections, Vrindavana, Mathura, and Dwaraka. And from there, the Ati Chaturviha expansion begins. Then we have the Vaikuntha region. So in this Vaikuntha region, there's this Vaibhava Vilasa or Narayana forms. So what is the difference between the Narayana forms in Vaikuntha region and the Goloka region? We have seen this in chapter 11 also. Anyone? From chapter 11, actually, Lord Krishna has actually shown all his different forms, right? In the beginning of chapter 11, he was present as in his original two-handed form. Then he revealed his which form?
Universal form.
Yes. So that universal form is the representation of the material world. Okay. So after that, he also revealed another form. Which one was that? Towards the end. Before going back to
the four-handed
Yeah.
Narayana form is.
Yes. So he from his original two-handed Shamsundara form, he revealed his Vishwarupa Darshan. Then before switching back to the two-handed form, he also showed his four-handed Narayana form. Then only towards the end, he switched back to his two-handed form. So if we observe carefully, chapter 11 is titled as Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. But throughout the chapter, he has actually revealed his entire, all his forms. Like starting from the two-handed original Swayam Rupa, he showed his Vishwarupa Darshan, which represents the material world. Then he also showed his Vaikuntha form, the four-handed Narayana form. Then he switched back to his original Swayam Rupa. So, like that, throughout the chapter 11, we can clearly see that he has actually revealed that he is the source of everything. So in 10.8, Lord Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabho. I am the source of all spiritual and all the spiritual and material worlds. And he actually revealed that. He proved that in chapter 11 by revealing all his different forms. So in the spiritual world, in his Swayam Rupa, he is present in his two-handed form in the topmost region, and in the Vaikuntha region, he is present in his four-handed form. So these four-handed Narayana form, they are expansions from the Adi Chaturviha, and even below the Vaikuntha region is actually the material world. So before the expansions, the Purusha avatars begin, there is another Dvitiya Chaturviha, or the secondary Chaturviha expansions, which are the source for the Purusha avatars. Okay, but before that, we can see that there are 24 names here, right? 24 names. Okay. Anyone knows the reason why got 24 here? Actually, Srila Prabhupada has explained the reason why in the purports, in one of the purports in chapter 11, especially when Lord Krishna revealed his four-handed form. in one of the purports, while Srila Prabhupada is talking about the 400 forms, he has given the reason why, how we got these 24 names. Why we have these 24 forms in the Vaikuntha region? Any clue? Yeah, the reason is because when we talk about the 400 form, what are the 4 objects in Lord Narayana's 4 hands? He carries 4 objects, right?
Club, disc, lotus, and according to Narayana, it changes now.
According to?
There are so many Narayanas. One Narayana form will have the different the club, lotus, and disc will be held in different hands and hands now.
Yes, exactly. So that is the reason why, because in his 4 hands, he carries the 4 objects, Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. So he carries the 4 objects in his 4 hands differently. So actually, in maths also, there's this concept called permutation and combination. So based on permutation, so 4 objects in 4 hands, when we change the arrangement, so it is 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, that's how we get 24. So these are the 400 Narayana forms, the expansions in the Vaikuntha region. And next, below the Vaikuntha region is the material world. So the Dvitiya Chaturviha becomes the source for these 6 categories of incarnations in the material world. So in the material world, so still it's like a hierarchy starting from what we saw earlier, from the topmost region in the spiritual world. So all the different expansions have led to these avatars, and now the term avatara, as mentioned earlier, specifically it is used to indicate the descent, the expansions from the spiritual world descended to the material world. And that's how, from the very beginning itself, starting from Mahavishnu himself, the first Purusha Avatara. So everything, all these 6 categories of avatars are known as avatars because they are related to the material creation. But the source is still from the spiritual world. So since they have descended to the material world, that's why they are particularly known as avatars. And that's why Srila Prabhupada also used the term incarnations for the 3rd chapter. Because in the 3rd chapter of 1st canto Bhagavatam, the 22 incarnations explained in that chapter, they belong to these 6 categories of avatars. So beginning from the first category is Purusha avatars, the 3 Purusha avatars. And in Bhagavatam chapter 3, it is also mentioned regarding the Leela avatars, Guna avatars, the 3 Guna avatars. So Lord Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, they all represent the 3 gunas. Shakti Avaisha avatars, Yuga avatara, Manvantara avatara, and okay, the six categories. So all these are known as avatars mainly because they descended. So that is the difference between the 2 terms, expansion and incarnation. So in most of Srila Prabhupada's writings, he uses the term expansion only in very specific cases. This term avatara or incarnation is used, especially to indicate the descent. So all these avatars descended from the spiritual world. So another thing to be noted here, all these different expansions and avatars, they are the personal expansions. Okay, now here in the purport for 13.20, it is mentioned here that the living entity is in the category of his energy, and the super soul is in the category of his personal expansion. So we just saw the 6 categories of um, avatars. So super soul belongs to which category out of the 6?
Purusha avatar, Kishoro Dakshaya, Vishnu, I guess.
Yes. So super soul belongs in that Purusha avatara category. But the important thing to be noted here is that all the expansions in the spiritual world, beginning from the Swayam Rupa until the avatars which expanded, which descended to this material world, they are all the personal expansions of the Supreme Lord. But the living entities are the separated expansions. So that is the main difference. So we also belong to the category of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. The living entities belong to the superior energy category. This is also mentioned in chapter 7. So in chapter 7, in 7.4, the Supreme Lord says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So these are the inferior energies. Then in verse 5 and 6, so he further explains that there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Okay, then in 7.6, all created beings have their source in these 2 natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. So in these 3 verses, the Supreme Lord has already mentioned in chapter 7 about the distinction between what is inferior material energy and what is superior spiritual energy. The living entities belong, we belong to, by default, we actually belong to the superior spiritual energy. But our condition is such that now we are like, our original identity is that we originally belong to the superior category, but at the same time, due to our conditioned nature, since we are embodied and trapped in this material world, we are also being pulled by the material energy, by Maya. So that's Srila Prabhupada also talks about this tug of war, about how the conditioned souls are regarded as the marginal energy caught in between. Our original identity is that we belong to the superior spiritual energy, but at the same time, due to our condition, uh, our present condition is that we are conditioned souls, okay, dominated by the 3 modes of material nature. So we are embodied. So it's like we are neither here nor there. So that is why the conditioned souls are regarded as the marginal energy, neither here nor there, caught in between. So, but based on our original identity is that we still actually belong to the superior category, but at the same time, it's not that we are equal to the Supreme Lord, because even in the context of these expansions, we are separated. We are the separated expansions of the Supreme Lord, but the categories we saw earlier, based on the hierarchy from the Swayam Rupa, those are his personal expansions. So that's how we are still distinct from the Supreme Lord. So though we belong to the category of superior spiritual energy, still we are separated expansions, and those different categories which we saw earlier from Goloka until the material world, so those are his personal expansions. So though he descends to the material world, still those 6 categories, they are distinct from us, because we remain as the separated, extended expansions, but the Swayam Rupa until the Purusha Avataras, those are all his personal expansions. So that's how he still remains distinctly different from us. Apart from that, there's also another verse in chapter 14, actually, when we, as we'll see later, about the three modes of material nature. If I'm not mistaken, in the third verse, 14.3, the verse starts something like this: Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma. So we also know that uh, everything, as mentioned in this verse, in 7.6, the Supreme Lord says, all created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. So, though we are the separated parts from the Supreme Lord, but still He is the source. Okay, though we belong to the spiritual category, He is also the source of the spiritual energy. And regarding the material nature also, He is also the source of the material nature. So that's how these terms, like the living entities like us, we are regarded as the Jiva Brahmans, and the word which appears in 14.3, Mama Yonin Mahat Brahman. Mahat Brahman refers to the material creation. So Jivas are actually Jiva Brahmans. The material nature is regarded as Mahat Brahman, but all these still originate from the Supreme Brahman, the Parabrahman. So the Supreme is always distinct, and therefore all these talks about monism and merging into oneness, they have no basis if we look at the exact words spoken by the Supreme Lord. He has made it very clear in each and every verse of the Gita. If we follow exactly what he has mentioned, we can clearly see the difference. So there's no reason for any confusion if we follow exactly what he had said. So that's how, though we belong to the category of the superior spiritual energy, still he is distinct. Okay, both material nature and the living entity are eternal. That is to say that they existed before the creation. The material manifestation is from the energy of the Supreme Lord, and so also are the living entities. But the living entities are of the superior energy. Both the living entities and material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, and when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of the Mahatattva. So even the material nature itself, it's not to say that just because this annihilation occurs, it doesn't mean that it gets destroyed. It is still there because the energy never ceases. The energy of the Supreme Lord, whether it's material or spiritual, it is always there. It is eternal. It's just that it changes its form. Like it is also mentioned in chapter 8. Okay, in chapter 8, from verses 15 to 20. Okay, in 8.15, the Supreme Lord says, Mahapetya Punarjanma Dukalayam Ashashvatam Napnavati Mahatmana Samsiddhim Paramam Gata. After attaining me, the great souls or yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So in this verse, the Supreme Lord terms the material world as Dukalayam. Then in 8.16, he says, A Brahma Pona Loka, Punaravastino Arjuna, Mahapetya Tukanteya, Punarjanma Navidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kuti, never takes birth again. So the material world we are now in the middle planet. Above Earth, there are 6 planets. So 6 plus 1, 7. Below Earth, there are 7. So like that, we have the 14 planetary systems within one material universe. So within one material universe, there is one Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and one Brahma, but innumerable universes emanate from the body of Mahavishnu. But though Lord Brahma himself occupies the topmost region, the topmost planet, still it is part of this Dukalayam. So even Lord Brahma himself is not immune to the material miseries. Then in 8.17, by human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. So in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada explains about how the calendar, how our calendar is different from Brahma's calendar. But the entire cycle for the material universe is based on Brahma's calendar. So that explanation is given in this purport. Okay, but in 1819, the Supreme Lord says, at the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. And thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. So what this actually means that the 14 planetary systems, they are within this universal egg. So that egg is actually what emanates from the body of Mahavishnu. So every bubble, every water bubble emanating from the pores of Mahavishnu's body is like one egg inside which the 14 planetary systems are there. So at the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest. This refers to the stage when the Garbhodaka ocean water subsides, because during Brahma's night, the universal egg in which is administered by Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, okay, the water inside the universal egg is actually the Garbhodaka ocean. Outside of Garbhodaka ocean is the causal ocean or Karana ocean. So within the universal egg, at the night of during the night of Brahma, the water rises until Lord Brahma's abode. It doesn't affect Lord Brahma's abode, but everything else, all the 13 planets, they are like covered due to the water rising. Then at the beginning of Brahma's day, the water subsides. So that's when from the unmanifest state, everything becomes manifest again. All the planets become manifest again. So this is what happens during Brahma's day and night. So this cycle keeps switching during his day and night. Then, okay, so again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. So throughout Lord Brahma's lifetime, for his 100 years, during every day and night, this cycle continues. The water rises and subsides. So when it rises, the planets below Brahma's abode, they are like annihilated, like from the manifest state, they become unmanifest. Then when the water subsides, they become manifest again. So this cycle continues throughout the life of Brahma, 400 years. But after the end of Brahma himself also has to die after 100 years. So after 100 years of Brahma, the entire universal egg gets annihilated. So that is the period when the water bubble actually enters into the body of Mahavishnu again. So it is like that is the time when Mahavishnu inhales. When he exhales, the water bubbles emanate from his body. So that's how all these innumerable universes become manifest, and as long as they remain, the cycle of Brahma's life continues. Then, when Mahavishnu inhales, the universes still enter into his body. So that's how Mahavishnu is regarded as the rest, the supreme rest of living entities. So as long as the conditioned souls are trapped in this material universe, even during the cycle, Mahavishnu acts as the supreme rest. So the cycle keeps continuing, and therefore the material creation never really gets destroyed. So that's what is meant by these lines, that even the material nature also is eternal, because the energy is always eternal, just that it keeps switching from one form to another throughout the cycles. So both the living entities and material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, and when it was required, it was manifested. So when he inhales, it gets absorbed. When he exhaled, it becomes manifested by the agency of the Mahatattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Okay, so another point to be noted here is that the living entities are actually the so-called Purushas who want to become enjoyers, and that's why they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Due to our conditioned nature, we ended up here because of our failure or refusal to acknowledge the Supreme Enjoyer. Therefore, the Supreme Enjoyer gave us the chance to enjoy on our according to our own capacity. And that's what we have been doing foolishly since time immemorial. We have been trying to enjoy in different bodies. So Srila Prabhupada uses the analogy of apartments. So all the conditioned souls have been occupying different apartments in all the 84 lakh apartments. So if I'm not mistaken, the verse is in Vishnu Purana regarding the 84 lakh species. Jalaja Navalakshani, Stavaram Lakshavimshati, Trimyo Rudra Sankhya, Pakshinam Dasalakshanam, Trimsha Lakshani Pashava, Chatur Lakshani Manushaha. So Jalaja Navalakshani, 9 lakh aquatics, Stavaram Lakshavimshati, plants and non-moving entities, 20 lakhs, Trimyo Rudra Sankhya, 11 lakh, germs and insects, Pakshinam Dasalakshanam, 10 lakh bird species, Trimsha Lakshani Pashava, the 4-legged animals, the quadrupeds, 30 lakhs, Chatur Lakshani Manusha, 4 lakh human species. So total 84 lakh. The 84 lakh species of material bodies were created for to serve as the apartments for conditioned souls. So conditioned souls, as long as they are not liberated from this material world, will continue to occupy one apartment from one apartment to another, depending on the propensity to enjoy. So due to this different enjoying propensity in different lives, we are given the chance to occupy different apartments. But as long as we have this propensity to enjoy, we can only enter into different apartments. In all these 84 lakh apartments, we can never enter into the spiritual sky. But the living entities are also given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the chance that we have been given now. So out of the 84 lakh species of material bodies, we have been given this wonderful opportunity to prepare ourselves to enter into the spiritual world. So out of the 84 lakh, we have been given the human species, the human material body, to allow us to reignite our spiritual inquiry and also to awaken our dormant Krishna consciousness. That is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within material nature. So, in both cases, actually, though it may appear that we as conditioned souls, it may appear that we are now enjoying in this material world, but we are nothing but slaves of Maya. We are nothing but slaves of the three puppeteers, meaning the three modes of material nature. We can either choose to be the servant of Krishna, or we can choose to be enslaved by the three modes of material nature. We can never be true enjoyers or supreme enjoyers in our own capacity, because that is our original constitutional position as the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So either we can serve the Supreme Lord in our original capacity as part and parcel of his spiritual energy in the spiritual world, or if we refuse, if we tend to act in a rebellious way, then the Supreme Lord will give us the chance to act as enjoyers in this material world. But that is due to our deluded condition, where we are now thinking that we are enjoying in this material world, but the reality is that we are being enslaved by Maya. So, since time immemorial, we have been shifting from one apartment to another. However, we are now occupying this prestigious apartment. Out of all the 84 lakh apartments, we have been given the chance to occupy this most prestigious apartment in this human form of life, which is the most ideal condition for us to reawaken our dormant Krishna consciousness. And there's also this wonderful opportunity to elevate ourselves from this middle part of the material world straight to the spiritual sky. So even Lord Brahma and those occupants of Janaloka and Tapaloka, they also have to be engaged in practicing Krishna consciousness, but they are already in positions which are higher to us. But we still have, though we are in the middle part of the material universe, still we are also, it is like we actually have much more privilege than them. So this is what Lord Brahma and all the demigods also talk about in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. They say that the human form of life is actually like even more advantageous compared to them, because though they are in the higher position based on the hierarchy, still they also have to practice Krishna consciousness. And though we are still in the middle part of this material universe, still we have the chance to elevate ourselves to the spiritual sky. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come in contact with material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and why this actually took place. So as the Supreme Lord himself has said in 7.26, Vedaham Samatitani Vatmani cha Arjuna Bhavishyani cha Bhutani Am tu Vedana Kachana. He knows the past, present, future, everything. But we don't know what happened in our past life. We cannot even remember what happened last week or last month. But the Supreme Lord knows everything, because through his localized expansion as the super soul, being the supreme knower in all the kshetras, he knows what was happening in all the different kshetras. He knows about all our activities when we were occupying all the different apartments in our previous lives. He has all the record about what we were doing in all our previous lives, and based on our past life, he regarded that we are qualified to enter to the most prestigious apartment now in this human form of life, and therefore he has given us the chance to reawaken our dormant Krishna consciousness. So, as the super soul who has been accompanying us in not just us, all the living entities, as the Supreme Lord says in 18.61, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddese Junatistati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantraudani Maya. The super soul is situated at the heart of all living entities, not just for human beings. He accompanies the Supreme Lord in his expansion as the super soul. He accompanies all the living entities. So he accompanies all the living entities and monitors. He observes all the activities of the living entities, and based on our activities and our different propensities to enjoy, he gives us the most suitable apartment. So it is all based on our choice. Due to our ignorant enjoying propensities, we ended up in the inferior apartments. But somehow, due to our past activities, which were favorable, and it actually led us to this current position where we have been gifted with this wonderful opportunity. We have been given this current apartment. So it is the onus is on us to fully utilize this opportunity to reawaken our dormant Krishna consciousness so that we can completely avoid the need for entering into another apartment out of the 84 lakh apartments. So our next destination should ideally be the spiritual sky, not another apartment in this material world. So the super soul monitors all the activities, as also has been explained earlier in this chapter itself, accompanying all the individual spirit souls. He observes all our activities, and based on that, uh, he knows what happened in the past and what is also happening now, even regardless of whether we get another apartment in this material world or whether we go to uh, the spiritual world. The super soul has all the records based on his observation. In the scriptures, the Lord says that those attracted by this material nature are undergoing a hard struggle for existence. But we should know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature by the three modes are also productions of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect to living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. So this this has also been actually explained much earlier in chapter 2 itself. In chapter 2, regarding the descriptions, because in the early part of chapter 2, in the earliest section of chapter 2, the Supreme Lord actually talks about the distinction between the spirit soul and also the material body. So there are several important verses like in 2.13, the Supreme Lord says, Denosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata deyantra pratir tiras tatra namuhyati. So the individual spirit soul in every body undergoes changes in the sense that the material body changes, but the embodied soul remains the same. At the end of one particular material body, when the body is to be discarded, the spirit soul enters into another material body. So that's how the term death is described in 2.13. Also, in 2.20, 2.22, the Supreme Lord also talks about similar attributes of the body and the spirit soul. So the spirit soul is eternal. The spirit soul does not undergo changes. So that's why the spirit soul is eternal, eternally fragmented parts of the Supreme Lord. The changes which actually occur are all due to the influence of material nature. As long as though we originally belong to the category of superior spiritual energy, since we are trapped here as conditioned souls, whatever changes that we have to undergo are all due to the influences of the three modes of material nature. Everything is under the control of the three puppeteers. As long as we are trapped here, we have to be, we will always be puppeteered by the three puppeteers. But our original constitutional position is that we are eternally the same. So the spirit soul, which is embodied, only undergoes the changes due to the influence of material nature. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. That's why the Supreme Lord in 15.7, he says, Mamai Vamsho Jivaloke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manashasta Indriyani, Pragristani Karshati. So he regards all the jivas as the same. All living entities are the same for him. It's just that due to our conditioned nature in this material world, we are trapped in different material bodies, appearing to be different, even amongst ourselves. We regard, even between human beings, we appear to be very different from the external appearance. That is only due to our material covering. But whether it is for human beings or animals or any other of the 84 lakh material bodies, the embodied spirit soul is the same for the Supreme Lord. So we tend to confuse jivas as equal to the 84 lakh material bodies. We distinguish between all the living entities as plants, animals, human beings, because we are so obsessed with this identification based on material designations. But the Supreme Lord is always supremely intelligent in the sense that he sees the living entities as the jivas, the embodied souls. So our tendency to identify ourselves based on material bodies, we identify ourselves also based on our external experience, external appearance based on our material body. And we also often tend to identify others based on their external appearances and their material covering. So that itself is the main symptom of our ignorance, of our material disease. That's why the first step of self-realization is to realize the distinction between the body and the spirit soul. That is the first step in self-realization. So these subject matters have also been explained in the purports for verses 13.8 to 13.12. In those verses, the Supreme Lord talks about the 20 aspects of knowledge. So these have also been mentioned there. So that's why the Supreme Lord regards us, the living entities, as the same. So that's all for today. Any questions or comments? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
I have a question. Just now we have discussed about the number of the duration, the day of Brahma. It's 1,000 human years, right? Is it?
Actually, in the purport, it is explained. Actually, 1 day of Brahma consists of 1,000 Chaturvikas. 1 day of Brahma is actually the day of Brahma also it is the daytime of Brahma. Meaning the 12 hours of Brahma is actually based on 1000 Chaturyugas. So one Chaturyuga is actually the the cycle of 4 yugas. So for each yuga, like Kali Yuga, is actually one times 432K. The important factor for you to remember is just 432K, 432,000. So Kali Yuga duration is 432,000 years based on our Earth years. Then Dwapara Yuga is times 2. Treta Yuga is times 3. Satya Yuga is times 4. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. So 10 times 432,000, we get 4.32 million, right? So one cycle of the 4 yugas, one Chaturyuga is 4.32 million. So 1000 Chaturyugas is actually 4.32 million times 1000, you get 4.32 billion. But that 4.32 billion is just the half day of Brahma. It's like his 12 hours. His one full day is 8.64 billion. So that is one full day of Brahma, 8.64 billion years, based on Earth years. So the entire duration of his life is 8.64 billion times 100 years times 360 days. So that's how in the purport for 8.17, you'll see that Srila Prabhupada gave this figure 311 trillion years and 40 billion. 311 trillion 40 billion years. So we get that figure from 8.64 billion times 100 times 360. So in each year of Brahma, there are 360 days. So 100 times 360 times 8.64 billion. So that is the total duration of Brahma's life based on Earth years. Yeah, that explanation is given in the purport of 8.17. Yeah.
Understand, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the detailed explanation.
Okay. Anything else?
Prabhu, you're very fast, Prabhu.
Huh?
You're very fast, Prabhu. Can't catch,
Meaning?
Prabhu.
No, which part was fast?
Anything, everything. You go very fast. Sometimes I lose hope. I let go.
Oh, sorry, but no, actually, you could have interrupted me.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Anything you want further clarification?
Now, you're so fast. I don't know where to stop and ask you the question also, bro.
Oh, sorry. No, next time, like, feel free to just interrupt. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else? Okay. Actually, today I'm replacing Parikshit Prabhu. So I think next week onwards he'll take over again this Gita session. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, where are you all this time, Prabhu? Now you're doing what? I don't see you Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita classes now.
No, actually on Tuesday, the Bhagavatam session, it was interrupted. The connection totally, I lost connection after some time. It
No,
kept.
Prabhu, before that, Prabhu, you went missing, Prabhu.
Oh yeah, actually I was occupied with some other personal commitments, but that one I due to some obligations, but I managed to totally get rid of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, sir.